Hi, good evening, ma'am. How are you?
Good evening, Shreya. Thank you for having me.
Are you excited for this session? Because we are.
Supremely excited to be on the Indian debate league.
Oh,
I'm very proud and honored. Thank you.
okay. I hope our audience is as excited as we are because, I was just letting the audience know that we have been inviting debaters, we have been inviting adjudicators, but we have here someone with us who have been training all those debaters, speakers, writers. We have with us a mentor, a teacher, and the audience would love to know a bit of your introduction, ma'am. So please go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So I am Ritu Rathod with the pseudonym Moonlight. My children call me Moonlight. I have been training children, Shreya, for the last 35 years. I have the opportunity, luckily, to have worked in India as well as New York. And I have trained several, I have lost count of children whom I've trained with English, how to use English in your social settings at school, to discuss, to debate, to take an interview at the workplace, to write great essays for universities, and everything to do with English.
Oh, ma'am, that's so amazing and diverse. And also hope you and your students are doing well and are staying safe because we see that the variant is on the sharp rise again and things might go into that online medium once again. So how have things unfolded, ma'am, in the pandemic? And I really hope that you are coping up with that well. What has been your strategy personally? Because creative field is something that requires one-on-one interaction. So what has been your strategy to cope up with that, ma'am?
Strategies have been important because I'll tell you, an online platform is a difficult one. Fortunately for
True.
me, it has opened doors to the world. So I have taken this in my stride very positively. As far as I'm dealing, as far as dealing with children, so I am dealing with Shreya ages 5 until 99. I deal with women. I teach them how to have conversational skills in social setups. So to teach them online, I think the most difficult age group would be, I would say 14, 13, 14, and 15, who are a little bit more distracted. They have a lot happening with themselves in their lives, including hormonal changes. But fortunately for me, I have a 20-year-old, so I know the shenanigans they play, and I can catch them, bring them back, get them engaged, get back to work in less than 20 seconds. So it has been challenging, yet not bad. I feel I am one of the mentors who has been able to consistently grab the children's attention. They have been pretty decent with me. So that's the only challenge. Otherwise, besides focus, really there is nothing which has worked negatively with me.
That's so awesome. That's a kind of positive outlook towards this catastrophic challenge, ma'am. And since you told about, training a lot more kids, training these kids who kind of cater to this age group of 13 to 14 years, and a major part of a stepping stone of training them requires them to become aware about the social issues, right? Because training them is not about only making their future brighter, but contributing towards a bright nation as well. So how has been the approach? How have you been instilling that social awareness, especially in terms of writing, in terms of speaking? How has that been, ma'am?
What I try to do, Shreya, is cultivate social awareness in every task that we work upon. So whether I'm working on an essay, a short story, and a diary entry, a report writing, I try to incorporate social issues. So let me give you an example. If I were to work on an essay, it would probably be on misogyny. That is a very important social issue that we need to talk about. If I'm working on a diary entry, we will work on a stressful day related to noise pollution. If we are working on a comprehension, it would probably be on hierarchy. The passage would be on hierarchy. If we are working on an argumentative essay, we will speak about the disadvantages of democracy. A story idea would be based on the India-China border tensions and infiltrations. So what we read about in newspapers, we try to incorporate in our writing exercises. We have a lot of discussions, a lot of debates in class, during class, I would say every alternate week. And this way the children are very well aware of what's happening around them, which is crucial. They cannot be oblivious and live under the rock in these times.
And rightly said, to bring about these bigger changes, we have to incorporate that thing into smaller essays, smaller report writing, notices, everything that we want them to do. And ma'am, as you talk about misogyny, you also talk about the India-China border tensions, and this also revolves around debates and discussions, right? So when I talk about social issues, what is, according to you, the importance of debates and discussion in shaping these young minds towards having a holistic perspective around everything?
So Shreya, let me tell you, debates have historically occurred in all public spaces, public meetings, academic institutions, in the living room, debate halls, coffee houses, restaurants, parking lots, the legislative assembly. You cannot escape debates and discussions. So children need to be aware and updated to prove their worth and build credibility by proving that they are aware of certain issues and they are able to prove their point of view, whether their point of view at that time is what do you call, correct or not. It may change over a period of time. That is different. But at that particular age and time, an 8-year-old must be able to convey what he or she feels about a certain issue, about women in the workforce. He may say, Mom, I want mom to be home. He can discuss and debate that. When he grows up, he'll probably say, when he has a girlfriend, he'll say, I want women to be working. It can change, but at any age, you should be able to convey your point of view with credibility.
Yeah, conveying your point of view with credibility, rightly said. And ma'am, if we talk about 8-year-old kids, when we train them towards debate and discussions, we need to exercise extra caution in terms of, because one way becomes that further they mirror their own pre-assumptions and indoctrinations. And the second way is that we kind of render them with a holistic and well-rounded perspective. So how do you usually strike a balance between the two? Because that's quite very important, especially when we cater to these young minds. So how have the challenges been in that regard?
To be able to articulate what you think and feel, at the same time giving respect and be acceptable and open about different perspectives is the key to learning and keep growing, Shreya. I would say that it's a very straightforward answer. You have to constantly be willing to learn.
Yeah, that flexibility definitely needs to be there, because be it in the status quo, be it in the world, a lot keeps on changing and we have to adapt to that. Yes. We have to be flexible in terms of, I can absolutely relate to that. And the audience would be astonished to know that as well. Ma'am has been training kids for SAT SAT, one of the most competitive exams out there. So ma'am, have you come across instances, because I'll be looking at it from that debating prism. Have you come across instances where a candidate with extremely good speaking skills or debating skills has an edge over others in exams like SAT?
Yes. So if I may say, the thought process, Shreya, can never be complete without articulation. So if the tongue had not been framed for articulation, man would still be a beast in the forest. With articulation and experience, one is able to perform better at any test, be it the SAT or the ESL. Why? Because they are willing to listen, to talk, to speak, to debate, to be open, to have discussions, to be constantly reading, learning. So it's going to be very important to be before you apply for a test, for an SAT or any university or international test, to be able to convey what you want to say is going to be very important.
Yeah, that's very important. As you rightly said, if you don't have articulation, it's like being a man, man still being a beast in the forest. Yeah, rightly said, ma'am. And there might be interested candidates in the audience as well who might be interested to appear for SAT. There might be kids from standard 11th and 12th. So how does the test practice looks like, ma'am? How does the simulate and test practices that you conduct, how does it look like?
Simulation tests are used to access how you would react to situations you can encounter while working and how you would solve problems. They depend on problem solving skills. They are one of the most used psychometric tests because the employer, Shreya, gets a good insight into your attitude, your problem solving skills, and how to handle real life situations. So with extra practice and more exposure to rich material, one can do very well with the SAT. So let me tell you, my daughter, who is now 20 and learning at the NYU, got a score of 1590 with practice,
awesome.
with practice, and reading. So I would say to students that the key to all tests is practice and reading. There are a lot of other things.
I do not understand.
Yeah, sorry. So what I was trying to say, Shreya, is there are a lot of other things. Time management, I would say looking up videos on YouTube for SAT practice tips, etc. But the key is reading and practice.
Yeah, so do not underestimate the power of reading and practicing is the key. And ma'am, when I came across this competition stat, I researched about it a little. I heard that it consists of argumentative writing, it consists of critical reading. So there must be a reason why universities have these as their exam pattern, right? So how does it help universities assess and then find the best candidates out of all those applicants, ma'am?
So as I mentioned before, I think the employer or the grader or the university moderator will get a great insight into your attitude and your ability to solve problems through these tests, because the passages in these tests are all about real life situations. They will have situations, they will have compared passages about scientists talking about genetics, they may have passages on history, and your essay that you write for the SAT, which is optional, but I always advise you must write that essay, is going to give insights about your vocabulary, your ability to argue, your ability to showcase what you have read and understood. So yeah, if that answers your question, Shreya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It really does. And when we talk about vocabulary, speaking skills, or articulation skills, like, what do you think is the role of speaking, articulation skill, in general, debating? How does it help in one's personality development overall?
Okay, so a very basic example that I'll give you. Let's say a fourth grader is having a debate at school, and he will or she will constantly say, I want to tell you, I want to say, my opponent said. Words, blah words like said, tell. If replaced with a price, inform, maybe chronicle, maybe communicate, or ascertain, try to unfold language, vocabulary to convey what you want to say, backed with ethos, pathos, logos, your credibility, with data, with proof, ability to arouse emotions, create empathy for with the judges, with the opponents. These skills are going to lead to you being a winner. And when I'm saying winner, you don't need to win a debate every time you're learning and adding on to your skills, but to be satisfied as a speaker is, going to be important over here.
That's pretty awesome, ma'am, because it enhances our credibility, convincibility, and then empathy as well. That I believe is very important to make yourself a leader. Especially in personality development, that's an integral part of it. And in ISDL as well, we have kept different formats in this tournament. We have kept WSDC, we have kept Asian Parliamentary, then one-on-one, which requires you to push your limits and keep on pushing your limits and come up with a lot of team interaction, team cohesiveness, as well as individual performance. So please do not miss on ISDL as well. Please go register. It definitely enhances a lot of aspects that surely enhances your personality, makes you a leader. You get to interact with the best minds of this country. So please register, and you get access to so many masterclasses. You get access to so many things that we have in store for you, right? So please go and register, and you can drop as many questions as you want, but after we are done with a very exciting rapid fire session with ma'am. So ma'am, hope you are all set and very excited for this session.
I truly am.
I'll be asking a few set of questions.
Put me in a spot
in not more than 1 word. Yeah, I'll be beginning. So the first question, this is going to be difficult, I'm sure. When given a choice, which of them would you choose as important for the conversation? A, grammar, B, pronunciation.
I am very much in favor of pronunciation, because that many people may not recognize grammatical errors, but very quickly they are able to understand pronunciation and certain accents and certain mistakes, certain errors. So pronunciation.
That would be the pronunciation. Okay, second question. If I ask you to name any one skill that you feel is important, irrespective of any field, and helps you in personality development, any one skill.
There's only one: communication. Only one. To be able to communicate what you are thinking.
Okay, that's awesome. And third one tip, because mostly we read, but how do we get the most out of it? So one tip to get the most out of reading.
Yeah, this is a great tip. So listeners, if you want to, implement this, when you read, try to go slow. Try to create images in your head about what you're reading. Pretend you are at that moment in the scenario and everything is happening around you. This way, you will never forget what you've read, and you can relive, that experience, what you've read. You can relate, you can talk about it in another setting in a much better way.
Yeah, just immerse yourself in reading. Just absorb that. Just negotiate a dialogue with reading. Yeah, that's really helpful, ma'am. And next question, which of these professions, according to you, prepares future leaders? A, counselors, B, writers.
Future leaders. Writers, I would say. Because counselors, you go to much later. When you are a writer, you can be a writer in grade 2, grade 3. When you are a writer, it is correlated with reading. What you read, you implement, you write. What you hear, you write. So being writers and continuing to write can lead you to the right counselor and the right job.
Oh, that's a kind of interesting ecosystem that you just established. That's so interesting, ma'am. And the next question around that would be, one best way to inculcate empathy in kids. One way.
So I am one way, by getting them involved. That's what I do with my kids. I get them involved in a situation. I get them to speak to the helpers at home, or get them to speak to the watchman, or to get them to speak to a friend to, resolve an argument or an altercation.
Get involved. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, ma'am. Last but not the least, this one is interesting. One mantra to keep our calm in competitions or competitive exams. One mantra.
Shreya, would you mind repeating that? Because I lost you kind of.
Okay, one mantra to keep our calm in competitions, debates, or in competitive exams like CAT or SAT. Yeah.
I would say preparedness, because if you're prepared, you're going to be calm. If you're not prepared, you're going to panic. So preparedness is the
Yeah.
mantra.
Preparedness is the key. So we pretty much reached towards the end of this live session with interesting questions, answers, suggestions, a lot of insights coming in. So I'll just be opening this comment section for any questions that you have, guys, for ma'am. Any questions you would like to ask, just drop in here. We'll be responding to each of your questions. Any questions, guys? We'll be waiting for 30 seconds. Any questions?
While the questions come in, Shreya, I hope I've answered all your questions, though.
Yeah, you've answered my questions beautifully, ma'am. You have covered it very holistically, touching all the aspects of reading, writing, speaking. I'm sure it added value to the listeners. And yeah, they'll be implementing it. So it was really helpful. For me personally, it has been really helpful. Around reading, around writing, speaking, debating, it's been really helpful.
Thank you.
And we had a question, interesting question. Do you also take Hindi classes? Okay.
I don't take Hindi classes, but I know someone who takes Hindi classes and is a great mentor. My Hindi is pretty good, but I don't think I'm equipped enough to teach Hindi because you need, a lot of experience to teach a language. So I don't take Hindi classes.
Yeah, it takes a lot of experience to teach a language. Hope it got your answer. So yeah, any more question, guys? Any more question? Okay, from which grade to start preparing for SAT? This is interesting, yeah.
Grade 3. Let me answer this a very important question. There are 8,000 vocabulary words you need to know to do well in your SATs. First of all, I would like all my listeners to know, try to call it the SAT because that's the right way, the Scholastic Aptitude Test instead of the SAT. So 8,000 words, you're never going to know if you start preparing in grade 10. It's impossible. Overnight, 2 months, you do a crash course. You're never going to be able to, learn those words. Another way is to learn the words with root words. That is the key. You learn root words, then you add suffixes, prefixes, make connections, and start preparing. I would say in grade 6, start answering 1 math and 1 English question every day. So very early.
Wow, that's
very early. Yeah.
Yeah. So those of you who want to prepare, take note of it very early. Just start off right now. Just start off with preparation. Interested? So yeah, I have a question for you, ma'am, that usually when I read novels, when I read newspapers, like how do I enhance my vocabulary? Because when I pay attention to those words, I just usually lose track of it. I usually lose the essence of what I was reading. So what is the best way to enhance vocabulary at the same time not losing the track of reading?
So Shreya, what you do is you learn that word, read that word, imagine the word, as I was saying, when you read, create images. And then within that next week, try to use that word again in another setting, at least 3 or 4 times. Another way is, let's say you come across a word like ubiquitous. It's a very popular SAT word. Ubiquitous means everywhere. So how do you remember the word? Immediately I create connections. Air is ubiquitous. Germs are ubiquitous. Every time someone sneezes, I remember the word ubiquitous. Every time somebody touches the knob of the door with a dirty hand, I will remember germs are ubiquitous. So repeating this word to yourself and usage, that's going to, that's, I think, the only
Repeating.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It was really helpful. Yeah. I'll just try implementing that from next time onwards. That was really helpful. In fact, the whole session has been really insightful and helpful. Ma'am has given answer to all the major questions around SAT, around debating, around speaking, around writing, around social awareness. All of the answers we got. The session might have added value to all the listeners watching right here. So thank you so much, ma'am. It was really, really, really fun having you. It was really insightful. The session has been really holistic. Thank you so much for joining in, ma'am. And thank you, our audience members, for joining in, staying here till the end. Thank you so much, ma'am. And
Let me say thank you to you, Shreya, and the Indian Debate League. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because it means a lot to be linked with such a popular, such a fabulous platform. And I'm hoping that people who follow you will understand the value of reading, learning English, pronunciation, diction, articulation, I would say vocabulary and everything, right from a very early age. So recognize that, and if you ever need me, feel free to get in touch with me.
so it was a pleasure having you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining. And as ma'am rightly said, that I hope you understand the value of debating, speaking from early on, the diction, the confidence, because that's kind of very foundational to evolve your principles, your arguments, your opinions around it. And if you still have not registered for ISDL, we might be closing registrations anytime soon. Please go and register. Get access to so many masterclasses, so many things that we are coming up with. So please go and register. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, the audience members, for joining in. We'll be back with another shortly. Bye. Good night.
I love you. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you.
Thank you so much.